this on? All right, you can hear me? Cool. I'm Denise, as David said. I'm going to be talking to you today about code review and how to level up your team at it. I'm so excited to be back on a real stage at a real conference. I really missed this. I think a lot of us did. By way of introduction, David already said some of this, but I'm a senior engineering manager at GitHub. I work on GitHub Sponsors. Sponsors is a program we launched about 3 years ago to help open source work get the support and the funding it deserves. I live in Toronto, as David also, I probably should have reviewed the intro slides before this, but I live in Toronto with my partner and our 2 cats. And Turning Red is a movie I saw a couple weeks ago. I actually went to the premiere in Toronto. It was super cool. Sandra Oh was casually there. I was like, what? But I was so inspired by that movie that I went a lot further in the artwork department for this talk than I originally planned. I thought this would also be a great time to write a talk and learn the basics of animation. So I have 200 slides for you and 10 minutes, so don't blink. As a manager, a big part of my job is having one-to-ones with my team so I can help guide them and coach them through whatever problems they're working on. It's the best part of the job. A few months ago, one of the junior engineers on my team told me during a one-to-one, I'm finding it really hard to contribute during code review because I'm so new. What feedback could I possibly give to these amazing senior engineers that I work with? How could I possibly be useful? And when I heard that, honestly, my heart broke for them, because I've been in those shoes. I know that anxiety and that feeling of not being able to contribute. But to hit pause for a second, I have to tell you a bit about GitHub's engineering culture. So we've been a fully distributed engineering team for a long time, even before the pandemic. We've used code reviews and pull requests as part of our core application development process for basically since forever. But I didn't always rely on code review to improve my coding skills. Before I came to GitHub, I worked at places where pair programming and even ensemble programming were core parts of the engineering culture. And those are incredibly effective ways to collaborate. But if I can be candid for a second, programming synchronously with other people can be really draining as a secret introvert who used to pair program all day, every day, for 3.5 years. So when I shifted to working remotely with teammates distributed across all the time zones, I learned that working synchronously can actually be really tricky because unexpected interruptions come up all the time, especially if you're a parent or a caregiver. People depend on you over the last 2 years. So I got more thoughtful and more intentional about the touch points I did have with my team. And it turned out that code review was one of those touch points. I worked on my written communication skills. I got more aware of the tone of my writing. And I learned how to inject whimsy and character into my comments. I learned that if we can make our processes thoughtfully asynchronous, it means that work gets more flexible, and it means that we're investing in a more inclusive environment for everyone. And this, to me, is a good enough reason to want to level up at code review. So let's unpause. So the most common reasons that teams use code review, I think, include keeping up a high standard of code quality, all good, ensuring compliance with things like GDPR, and of course, sharing knowledge, both as the author and the reviewer. There are things that I think code review should not be used for, however. Things like code review should deal with things that require human judgment. So I don't think teams should use code review time and, frankly, social capital, right, to deal with things like code formatting and test coverage. Get some linters going in your continuous integration tooling. Let the robots do the nitpicking. And better yet, leverage your code editors and tools like on-commit hooks to fix these things before they can even get pushed up. So let's talk code review. There's so many ways that engineers on your teams can contribute, no matter how new they are. I'm going to talk about different types of contributions, kind of like wearing different lenses. The first is the lens of readability. I like starting with this one because I actually do strongly believe that every single engineer can evaluate a pull request for readability. In fact, the less context you have on the work being done, the more effective you are as this type of reviewer. I made you a graph, so you know you can trust me. Because we're trying to answer the question, can someone with lower context understand what this code is doing? That's someone usually being me in 6 months. So as a reviewer wearing the lens of readability, I might ask questions like, have things been given good and descriptive and intention-revealing names? Have the unit tests been used as an opportunity to explain why new code might be run? Because after all, tests are runnable documentation. What's in the opening description of the pull request? Can I figure out the intention of this change just with the reading materials that I was given? So that's your readability lens, number 1. What other lenses can you wear? Lens number 2, performance and scale. So performance, how fast, and scale, how big, are slightly different concepts, but they're closely enough related that I think we can consider them to be the same lens, a single lens, when we're reviewing. As aware of the perf scale lens, I'm looking out for any indications that this code might not work as intended when run at production scale. Questions I'm asking here are, will this code work if being accessed by 100 concurrent requests? What about 1,000? What about 10,000 or more? For code that accesses a database, how many rows does this database contain today? Will this query perform OK if there were 100 million rows or more? Do we have the right covering indexes? Are there any opportunities to maybe reduce the number of queries that we're making? Maybe through memoizing things, caching things, maybe denormalization, all of those good things. Perf scale is usually not a beginner-friendly lens to wear, unless, of course, the beginner happens to come from database infrastructure and is just new to application development. That's the thing. Because to identify scale problems, you usually need to have some experience working at scale. And that's not typically an opportunity afforded to early career developers. But there's actually kind of a shortcut. Read the book, Designing Data-Intensive Applications by Martin Kleppman. I rarely recommend specific books because our industry changes so fast, but honestly, this book will seriously level up any engineers looking to get better specifically at performance and scale, being this type of reviewer from an app dev perspective. OK, next lens. Last section got a little bit unhinged. I think I did it at like 3 a.m. User experience. So I know this is a little bit spicy to be reviewing for at code review time because it's quite late in the process. Hopefully, at this point, UX has been talked about, explored, researched, maybe even put in front of real users. So there should be no surprises at this point about what we're implementing. But here's the thing, right? Code review is a feedback loop, just like wireframing, just like mockups, just like user testing. So why ignore this opportunity? I think it's beneficial for entire teams and not just UX designers to think about our end users' experience. So as aware of the UX lens, we're reviewing for things like, is all of our user-facing copy clear? When errors are thrown, is it clear to the user how they would get out of the error state and back onto the happy path? Do UI changes work on different viewports and devices? Do they work across different browsers? And what about the experience of screen reader users? Is the experience friendly to colorblind users, users with vertigo and motion sensitivity? So when I see engineers who are really interested in the UX angle, I try to help them build stronger relationships with our design team, which has always resulted in a more fun and collaborative product engineering experience overall. Really hope I don't get sued by Disney for using their properties excessively in this talk. So final lens I want to talk about is the lens of convention. Conventions are about standardizing the way that you solve a type of problem when the language or framework gives you a lot of different and equally valid approaches. So style guides, right, for languages and frameworks have existed for a long time. And these are great things to let your linters and robot nitpickers take care of. But beyond that, most companies also have their own way of using a language or framework. So for example, GitHub-flavored Ruby is probably different from where the Shopify folks at. Shopify-flavored Ruby, which is probably different from Thoughtbot-flavored Ruby, and so on and so forth. So code review is actually a pretty great way of socializing the concept of, say, GitHub-flavored Ruby. Although I do think that eventually this knowledge should live in developer-facing documentation rather than incidentally in the brains of your most prolific code reviewers. So there are your 4 lenses: readability, perf scale, UX, and convention. Try putting one of these on deliberately the next time you code review. But before I go, I want to end with just a quick note about empathy. Written communication is hard. I think we've all learned that the last 2 years. And being empathetic using our words can be really hard. But it's important that when we interact with each other's work, that we put in the extra effort to be kind. So here are some quick final parting thoughts about kindness in code review. First, celebrate the positive, right? Leave specific comments, emojis, and GIFs about what you thought was great, even if there are changes that need to be made. That's OK. Second, be super clear about whether a piece of feedback should block the author's ability to ship the PR. 2 engineers on my team actually created a system where we preface our review comments with an emoji, some indicating this is blocking. Others are trying to communicate this would be nice to have, but can happen in a follow-up, or not at all. It's just my preference. Third, if you want to suggest an alternative way of doing something, take time to explain your reasons and include code samples to illustrate what you mean. Putting effort into your feedback is a way to acknowledge that a lot of effort went into authoring the pull request. Giving thoughtful feedback is practicing empathy. I hope that this talk gave you some new ideas to bring back to your team. I will be at office hours later to answer any questions. Thank you so much for listening. 222 slides.